Battle lines were drawn on GB News as Ben Leo unveiled Reform UK's mass deportation blueprint, detention centres, daily flights, and the Human Rights Act in the crosshairs. Mohammed, director of the Afghan Human Rights Foundation, pushed back, insisting asylum is a right, not a crime. War of words erupted as Leo brutally challenged claims. Before the panel split, Peter Blexley backed the hard line, Linda Jubilee warned of hotel tensions, and Paul Richards questioned feasibility. The country's had enough, rang out. Watch the clip.
Before this, I want to say a big thank you to all our supporters who helped us reach our very first 1,000 subscribers. That achievement truly means a lot and inspires us to keep giving you our best. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do it now. Most people who watch our videos aren't actually subscribed. We know life gets busy, but subscribing is completely free and it really helps us grow. Our next goal is 3,000 subscribers, and with your support, we can get there even faster. You can also support the channel by checking out the links in the description, where you'll find some valuable books. They cost you no extra, but each purchase gives us a small commission that helps us improve our content. Thank you so much for being part of this journey.
Now, if you thought Labour were already in a sticky position politically, down in the polls and their vote being split by Corbyn's new party, well, just wait until you hear what Reform UK have in store.
Everyone that comes illegally will be deported, full stop, end of story.
Yes, that's right. Something to celebrate on a Saturday night. Mass deportations. Asylum seekers detained on arrival to Britain, put in former military bases and then potentially packed off to British overseas territories such as Ascension Island in the South Atlantic. No right of appeal. Goodbye, see you later, off you pop. The NHS, HM Revenue and Customs and the DVLA will also be required to share data automatically so illegal migrants can be tracked down and arrested. Reform UK leader Nigel Farage there outlined the plans in an interview with The Times today, where he said the immigration crisis poses not just a national security threat, but leading to public anger that he said wasn't very far from disorder. Farage's plan will be revealed in a song and dance announcement on Tuesday, but it starts with leaving the ECHR, of course, and scrapping the Human Rights Act, two tasks that I argue should be relatively easy to achieve. Reform would then introduce a British Bill of Rights before leaving the Refugee Convention, the UN Convention Against Torture and the Council of Europe's Anti-Trafficking Convention, all done under the banner of Britain facing a state of emergency. Reform's plan is called Operation Restoring Justice, and a Farage government would build detention centres capable of holding 24,000 people, prefab buildings with canteens and medical facilities on site. Crucially, and this is important when it comes to the context of hotels, no one would be allowed to leave. No asylum seekers from God knows where roaming the streets of British communities. Farage said in his interview with The Times, they have no right to claim asylum. They'd be arrested and detained. They'd be put into disused military bases. Don't tell me we can't put together facilities for people to stay, because we can. They would be treated with a degree of civility, of course. They're going to be fed and watered and looked after, given medical care if they need it. Reform would also be open to sending people to third countries, including, by the way, reviving the Tories' Rwanda plan and doing a deportation deal with the likes of Albania. And they reckon Britain would have 5 deportation flights a day, 5 a day, on RAF Voyager aircraft if necessary. And all this could be done now, of course. They could do it now. Labour could do it, Sir Keir Starmer could do it. It just needs political will. President Trump in the United States has proved that if you have conviction to stop illegal migration, you can eliminate the issue very, very swiftly indeed. He declared a national emergency, he deployed troops to the southern US border, and thousands of people had their sealed status rescinded while police detained others. The US has just enjoyed 0 illegal migrant releases into the US for the 3rd month running. So, as I've been saying for many weeks now, it's time to stop getting bogged down in argumentative detail about where to house illegal migrants, what benefits and what rights they should have, who pays for what and what level of hospitality we give them. The country's had enough. But I'm joined now by the director of the Afghan Human Rights Foundation, Mohammed Asif. Mohammed, good evening. Thanks for your company. What's your take on Reform's big plan set to be announced on Tuesday?
Good evening. I think it's just a dream like what Swala Braverman dreamt. And when, Nigel Farage wakes up the next day, there will be nothing, he won't be able to achieve anything. Britain is not a lawless country. It's not Afghanistan. It is not Iran or Saudi Arabia or Cuba. There is the rule of law, there are judges, there's the judiciary, and asylum is a fundamental human rights. Anyone who enters in Britain and apply for asylum under the Geneva Convention 1951, he or she is entitled to claim asylum. Whether you are accepted or not accepted, that's another story, but claiming asylum is not a crime. It's a right under the UN Charter.
Yeah, I think when it comes to the Geneva Convention, Mohammed, Reform would say that Article 32 allows, if the claim is, quote, manifestly unfounded, or the country, the government at the time says that there's going to be a national security threat or somebody's committed a serious crime, they can reject asylum, and also they can get by the Article 32 by sending them to third countries. In this case, Nigel Farage is saying send them to the likes of Rwanda if they revive the scheme, or even Ascension Islands. So the Geneva Convention wouldn't count, as far as we understand.
Unless Britain withdraws from the Geneva Convention, then they can do whatever they want to do.
You can't leave it.
No, until you are a signatory to the Geneva Convention, you can't do that, because asylum, as I said, is not a crime. And when you talk about security threat, people who come on dinghies on the back of the lorries, the security threat comes from the man in suit and tie, who are millionaire and billionaire, like what happened in 9/11 in the US, in the 7/7, and other bombings in Britain. These were not asylum seekers, these were not refugees. These were, millionaires supported by, quite well-off countries, and they carried out the atrocities. Someone who is seeking sanctuary, coming on the back of the dinghy is not a security threat. And I work with asylum seekers.
Some are, Mohammed, I'd argue.
No. Let me finish, if you don't mind. The Home Office have a kind of process, and I can show you the interviews transcript. They ask very, very detailed questions that what the person background is and where she or he comes from. When someone is a security threat, he or she is immediately arrested.
Well, that's not the case, Mohammed, because there was a lad, I forget the poor boy's name, I hope his family will forgive me. There was a lad down in Bournemouth who was murdered by a small boat arrival. The Home Office didn't realise he'd already murdered 2 people in Serbia, and on a night out, I think it was in Bournemouth, his name was Thomas, he went and murdered a British lad. There's also people, Mohammed, if you let me finish, there's also people who've been arrested, accused of sexual offences against children who were staying at the Epping Hotel in Essex. They've been accused, and they're going through the judicial process at the moment. There's been other people, there's been Iranians who came on small boats who have been arrested for plotting to blow up the Israeli embassy. So I'd argue they're security threats. Mohammed, no?
No. One or 2 or 3 out of 30,000 people.
One is too many, Mohammed. For the British people, one is too many. How many is acceptable?
I mean, currently there is legislation in this country. There is the judiciary, there is the police, there is the enforcement agencies, there is the tribunal, there is the courts. If someone commits a crime, whether it's a sexual offense or terrorist offense or whatever offense, he or she should be punished, according to the law. You cannot judge someone because looks like me or look like someone.
All right, thank you, Mohammed Asif, Director of the Afghan Human Rights Foundation. Thank you, have a good weekend. Right, let's get the thoughts of my panel, former Labour Party Special Advisor Paul Richards, the journalist and broadcaster Linda Jubilee, and the former Scotland Yard detective Peter Blexley. Oh, who to go to first? Peter Blexley looks like he's stewing. Peter.
You know what? These human rights people, whether they're members of organisations or they're human rights lawyers, never actually talk about responsibilities, do they? They talk about the rights of the people they represent, their rights to come here. And Mr Mohammed Asif seems to me like he'd quite happily transplant the entire population of Kabul into Britain if he was given half a chance. Yeah. The one line from your monologue that was so powerful for me was the country's had enough. Yeah. And that, in those simple few words, absolutely nails the position of so many people in the UK. Yeah,
even people, Linda, who weren't really engaged in news before or politics, didn't really have much time for who's running the government, and they suddenly wake up in Britain one day and they think, oh, hang on a minute, something's not quite right here.
And that's exactly right, because I would say for the last 3 or 4 years, we have been filling hotels with asylum seekers, particularly quite big hotels. The problem has come when you get these hotels like the Bell Hotel in Epping and like some of the hotels which I've actually visited, which are in small, quite put-together communities. Then there's a problem because you can see, cheek by jowl, people who have an enormous difficulty in integrating with our culture and our values. Plus, we've seen an enormous growth in the number of people who come over on boats. The problem there is, as you say, Ben, quite correctly, that they have chucked their documents away, so we don't know where they've come from, we don't know what their past is, and that is what has led to the concern, particularly amongst parents and young girls.
Paul, Reform UK, big announcement on Tuesday, mass deportations, detention centres, music to the ears of many of the electorate. Where do Labour go from here?
Well, there's an interesting story in the Sunday Times tomorrow where Keir Starmer is going to announce that judges' power to delay asylum cases are going to be taken away, and there's going to be these fast-track tribunals which will speed up that process.
But they're just going to be approved, aren't they?
As what?
They're just going to be approved. That's how they'll deal with it. So, you can come in, and you go.
I don't think so. I think the point is this is a deliberate attempt to get people out of the country that shouldn't be here in the first place. On the reform plan, I mean, it's unravelling already. He hasn't even announced it yet. He's saying start a detention camp on Ascension Island. 800 people live on Ascension Island, and there are 17 RAF personnel. So what are they going to do with 5,000, 10,000 people?
No, I think the detention camps were here in the UK.
He's saying deport people to Ascension Island. You said it in your monologue. You didn't mention, however, he wants to do a deal with Iran.
Yes, he said hopefully deals with Iran, with Iraq, to get these people...
The Ayatollahs. He wants the British government to do a deal with the Ayatollahs.
Well, I wouldn't care dealing with Iran. Just send these people back. Why should... Hang on a minute, Paul. Why should anyone care that we do a deal with Iran if they're taking back their people?
Genocidal lunatic regime, that's why. And they're our enemy, and they're funding all the people that are trying to blow up the Middle East.
Exactly. All the more reason not to have Iranians coming here.
Deal with them.
Precisely, because we don't want genocidal people coming to this country.
He's also announced this massive constitutional upheaval, which I think if people look at what that means, a British Bill of Rights and a sort of tearing up our ancient constitution, introducing all kinds of things alien to our constitution, like sort of written documents and so on, which I just think